Morning everybody, welcome back to Coffee and Lore. I am so excited to be here this morning. Happy Thursday morning. It's early, so my coffee's hitting this morning. Okay, good morning. Now that I've had coffee, I can say like good morning officially and actually and like full of life, because without it, I don't run correctly. Hence why when I started this YouTube journey, I was like coffee and lore, because as much as I try to get away from it, coffee is such a vital part of my life. And I think any other working mom, etc., would get it. Like, they would get it for sure. On that note, what is this video about? We are doing a review of 2020. What did we read in 2020? What did we love? What wasn't as great as we had hoped? 2020. What a year it was. I did a lot of reading in 2020. I have down here that I read between 45 and 50 books, which is about normal for me. And the reason I don't know the exact number is because, as a lot of you guys know, I do sometimes read on my Kindle. 90% of the time read on my Kindle. So that's real easy to go back and count which books I read in 2020. But I also, if I'm at a grocery store, a bookstore, a thrift shop, a flea market, and I see something that I'm like, oh my god, I want to read that, I will pick it up. I have no shame in my game. I will read in any media format there is. If a book looks good, your girl's gonna read it. So I tried to find all the paperbacks that I read, also looked back at videos. I think it's closer to 50 than 45, but I might be forgetting a few. And so of those 50-ish books that we read last year, what were our favorites? Which ones hit us, like, in our soul? Well, first book I have to talk about, I had it recommended so many times to me. Like, so many times. And I finally broke down and read it. I read it. If you go back and look at my YouTube video review for this book, I was emotional AF. It's an emotionally draining book, and I read it on, like, a terrible week for me where I was already emotional. But anyways, I digress. Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. Phenomenal book. Phenomenal. Like, it's an older book, but it hits just the same as if it was written like a year ago. It really, really does. And I definitely recommend reading that book, especially if you're going through any sort of like self-discovery or self-care moment. It's a beautifully written book. Essentially, I mean, I have a review of it, but it's about a prostitute who, you know, doesn't feel like she's worthy of anything, and she learns what she's worthy of. So, Redeeming Love, check it out. It's phenomenal. Victoria Aveyard's The Red Queen series. Was really surprised by that one last year. I'm gonna go ahead and say the first two books, super solid. Would reread the first two books because they were that good. Yes, the latter books do lose me a little bit. I finished the series, but the latter books are not as good as those first two. They were fantastic and grabbed me instantly. Since we're talking a little youth fiction, because I think that's kind of where Red Queen is secure, is like young adult. The Selection series by Kiera Cass. I know I have a video reviewing that one down below. So good. That was one from start to finish I thoroughly enjoyed. It is light and fluffy with some serious bits, but a lot of it is pretty light. I loved it though. I really did. From the, love triangle at the very beginning, it grabbed me, and I mean, I smashed that series, the whole thing, in like a weekend. So the Selection series, really good. Infinite Pieces of Us. It's by Rebecca Crane, and I have not talked about this one on this channel yet. Infinite Pieces of Us is going to fall into your young adult as well, but it is dealing with some really heavy topics. It is about a girl who, her and her family moves to a new city to kind of start over, and it doesn't really tell you why until close to the end. But yeah, Infinite Pieces of Us. That was a sleeper for me this year. Something I picked up for like $2.99 on Kindle. Didn't have high expectations for it. Blew them out of the water. And I hadn't really touched base here on Coffee and Lore on that one. So definitely check that one out if you like kind of coming of age stories that aren't all wrapped up in a pretty bow. My rediscovery of James Patterson. I say my rediscovery because I had read him when I was younger, like 18 and 19, but coming back as an almost 35-year-old woman and reading his thrillers are a different vibe. I read like 4 to 5 James Patterson books out of 50 books. 4 or 5 of them were James Patterson this year. I really delved in and found a new love for James Patterson that I didn't have before. And I'm really excited that I took a shot and picked his book up off of the shelf. I believe it was in one of my vlogs at a book tour that we did, like a bookshop. And so picked him up and never looked back. Really well done stuff. One that we read that we weren't like super duper thrilled with, but it got so much hype, was My Dark Vanessa. That's Kate Elizabeth Russell. I had really high expectations for My Dark Vanessa, and they kind of fell short just because the character of Vanessa, to me, was not likable. And that made it difficult for me to give a hooey what happened to her or whatever. Like, she kind of just chucked her life away because of this thing, and I understand because I've never had something like this happen to me. I don't know how I would react, but I don't know, I could not care about Vanessa, and maybe that's a flaw in me, but I just was not a My Dark Vanessa fan. And once again, there's a review on My Dark Vanessa where I delve into more detail on what issues I took with the book. So if you want to check that out, you can. But those were some of my favorites from 2020. Like, most of them have reviews where if something piqued your interest, you can go into my channel and find the review just by searching the name of the book. But I think just one in there I didn't do a review on just because time, and I can't review every single thing that I read because, man, that would be a lot of videos. On that note, you guys, I hope you enjoyed 2021, a year in Coffee and Lore review on what we read, what we liked, what stunk. I really hope you guys are enjoying more content that I'm getting up for you. It is a struggle for me to get 2 videos out a week. I'm really pushing myself right now. I hope there's not a lot of background noise. I've got washers and dryers running. The husband's working from home really closely. The daughter's schooling from home just down the hallway. So I hope there's not a lot of background noise for you guys. But I am so happy to be here. What are you guys reading this year?